And I continue from the time when we arrived in Auschwitz and we were selected and we were sent to a shower. All the clothes has been taken away from us. All the belongings has to be left in the train. All what we had with us, just what we were wearing. The clothes what we were wearing, except I had my tefillin with me. I didn't want to leave it on the train, and I thought I'm going to save my tefillin. It was my bar mitzvah train, just a year before I was bar mitzvah, and that was my most treasured possession. I wanted to save it. And when we went into the bath to have those showers, I put it on a ledge, and I thought when we come out, I will find it there. Unfortunately, we were not taken out from the way how we came in. We were driven out after we were giving that blue and white prisoners' clothing. We were taken out. The shower went on just for a few minutes. The people they cut off their hairs, and we were directed into a barrack in the A-lager. It was so overcrowded. There was no bunks in that barrack. It was just a concrete floor, and we just had to sit. There was not enough space to stretch out. We just had to sit like one in front of the others. But that didn't last that long, just for about a week, because you see, Auschwitz, those people, Birkenau rather, and people who were selected for life, for the temporarily at least, for life, they didn't stay there long, because there was a constant demand from German, all various camps, that they needed workforce. And they made a selection from the people who were in the camp, who were caught in the camp, and they took, could be sometimes they organized a transport, 300, 400 people, sometimes they needed 100 people. By that time, towards the middle of the summer, I realized it, because when we arrived, we didn't know what's happening. We couldn't believe it. Though the people were telling us, some people were saying, there's people who were sent to the wrong side, they were gassed and burned. We couldn't believe it, that is true. It just cannot be true. The only time it was, we arrived in July, and the 2nd of August, that was about 3 weeks later after our arrival, one side of our camp was occupied by gypsy families. And the Germans decided one night, they evacuated all the gypsies and they were sent to the gas chambers. The gypsies knew already where they are going to be sent, and we heard on the Jewish side, we heard screaming all night, and dogs are barking, and in the morning we saw there's no more gypsies left. Their poor belongings were all thrown away on the streets. They had some more belongings than we had, the gypsies. Then came to the recognition, if they do that with the gypsies, possibly it's just a question when it's going to be our turn. Those who were sent into the camp, it does not mean that we are going to survive. It's just a question. I wanted to get away from Auschwitz, because I knew by that time, I heard new people came in transports. After they finished, we were about the last few transport of the Hungarian Jews. Western Hungary was the last bit, and then it came around Budapest, came a few transport after we arrived, and then it stopped. And then at that time in Auschwitz, we knew that in Budapest, at that time there were living about 300 or even more, 300,000 Jews, and from Budapest no transports came. We didn't know why, but that's how it was, and it was a relief for us that at least what happened, that Horthy, the regent of Hungary, he was still nominally the head of the government, but the power has been taken away from him by Hitler and by the right-wing government, who has to appoint. Then he came back to power, and he stopped. He sent Eichmann. Eichmann, who was must have heard Adolf Eichmann, who was executed in Israel, who was tried, just now came out of book. He died. The judge who was Eichmann's trials was just passed away. And he sent Eichmann packing, and he said, no more transports to Auschwitz. And that's how a vast number of Budapest Jewry survived, because also even afterwards, that was in July, middle of the July when they stopped and transport, but Auschwitz was anyway closed down in October, or I think in October when the Germans were ready to evacuate Auschwitz because the Russian army was pushing ahead, as they wanted to destroy all the evidence. And the little jobs, I was not taken to work. I was not fit to work, so I just stayed behind. And the Germans decided that all in the camp are left a few thousand rejects, either people who just got in by somehow, older people or youngsters who got in, or people who didn't notice that they were ill, but there is no useful force here. It's people who are just eating and they don't produce anything. So then I started the selection from the camp. The first selection was Erev Rosh Hashanah, the day before Rosh Hashanah. Then they said that they're going to be the whole camp has assembled in the end of the camp there was a plaza, there was a place where people could assemble. Everybody had to go from all the barracks, and they went through, separate the people who think they got some, they were able to do some work, or people who are unable to work. I was, of course, I was small and thin, so I was immediately sent with the children. But at that time they said, the Germans, that these children are going to be taken to a children's camp, which they are going to have a much better conditions. And some of the children, I mean children of my age and younger even, or about the age from 12 to 16, and they were so miserable, they were just, when they were sent to one side, they were just went into the barrack. As soon as they got into the barracks, they locked the barracks, and they were there for 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. And this was the time when Rabbi Sperber mentioned the story with Rav Meisels, who was blowing the shofar for them. Anyway, going back to my own story. As soon as I was sent to the wrong side, to the children's side, to the smaller one, I decided when nobody was looking, I just jumped out from that and went over to those people who were selected to be alive, for time being at least. And I got away with it. So, after 2 days, Rosh Hashanah, when the people were taken away, those who were survived, we thought, no, it's all over, so business as usual. But it was not business as usual, because 10 days later, Erev Yom Kippur was similar, because we were not satisfied for the number of people whom they have sent to the gas chamber, so we made another selection. That was already much stricter, and when I was sent again to the wrong side, I tried the same trick, but it didn't work. I mean, just to run away from them and go to the other side. I started run away from the selected group, and the Lageraltester, who was running around with the Germans, who was a prisoner, usually the block commandant and lager commandant, they were the worst. They were all, especially those who were criminals. So the population of the camps were varying. Besides their numbers, they had a triangle. The Jews were yellow, the criminals were green, the political prisoners, who were quite decent, because most of them they were either political opponents of Hitler from the right or from the left. Some of them were communists or Christians or liberals. They were decent. They were a red triangle. And then were also a pink triangle. There were the homosexuals also sent to the camp as instead of sent to prison. Those who were caught in the act. So the Jews were yellow triangles, and the Gypsies had black triangles. That was how you can distinguish among the residents of the camp, of the prisoners, what they belonged to. So as I was selected to the wrong side, I started running away from there, and he noticed that Lagereltester, he was a criminal, he was a green triangle, and he said one of his subordinates, one of his couples said, go and fetch that boy. So he ran after me, he got hold of my hands, and he said to me in Yiddish, "Läufe weg von mir," run away from me. So I didn't need much encouragement. So I ran away. So when the Lagereltester noticed that I freed myself from the grip of this couple, he ran after me, and where can I run now? I saw there was one block that was Russian prisoners of war, who were just happened to be, they went to work, because in Birkenau there was not much work going on, there were no industries in Birkenau. Auschwitz was a working camp, it was more working camp, Monowitz, but Birkenau was really a distribution camp. Arrived, and people got killed, the majority got killed in Auschwitz, and those who were sent in the camps, they were kept there for distribution to other camps. So that's why I managed to stay there the whole summer without doing any work. So anyway, I'm getting away from the subject. Very difficult for me. I'm not, to put everything in chronological order. So as I saw the Russian prisoners of war congregating before their barrack, I ran among them. I said, maybe I can hide among them. And the Russian prisoners, they made room for me. They parted like the Red Sea, and I ran into the barrack. And the Lagereltester arrived, and they stood up in front of him and said to him, "You don't come into our barrack. If you come here, we promise to you, we are not going to get out alive." Because he was also another prisoner. So he decided to back out. So he left me with the Russians. The Russians said to me, "Look, you are welcome to stay with us, but you cannot stay with the Russian prisoner of war. You stick out like a sore thumb." So they gave me something, food to eat, and I had to wait till night when it was all over. The lager was quieting down, and I went back to my barrack, to my brother who saw that I've already disappeared among the people who were going to be killed. And when he saw me, he didn't know from the simcha that I'm still alive. So that was, you know what day was it? Erev Yom Kippur. It was called Nidri night when I got out from the Russian barrack and I met my brother. So I was all right. I was survived this selection, but until they took away the people selected, they were not safe, because the people get select some more, some added to it, to the action. So I was, and next day, Yom Kippur, when we were standing, and every day was, as you mentioned before, we had to be counted. And as we were counted, what I heard later on, that at night from the locked barrack, some of the boys broke out the locked barrack, and they are dispersed into the camp. And they were missing from about 20-25 from the numbers. So they just at random, they picked up anybody whom they saw and just pulled him among those who were selected. And I was standing, I was shivering. I was standing five. You have to stand five per row, 5 people per row. And I didn't want to stay in the front because I stick out that I'm small. And in the end, it's in verse. So I decided I stand in the number 3 in the middle, and I put some bricks under my foot that I should look taller, so I will get past. That was my trick, but it didn't help. As soon as an assessment came with a couple, and as soon as he went through quickly the row, and he saw me, he pulled me up with my shirts, and I said to the assessment, "I can work, I can look at me, I'm strong." I showed my non-existent muscles, and I said, "Look, I'm strong, I can work." And the couple who was with the assessment gave me a slap in the face, and he says to me, "Schweig the Hund." And the assessment said to him, "Abelesz." Leave him alone, leave him. So he pushed me back into the row. This I survived again. Of course, he took somebody else instead of me because the number has to be tallied. So that's how I survived the second selection. The third selection was in Simchas Torah, by realizing that you could do some voluntary work outside the camp, and I volunteered to do some work because sometimes you had just nothing important. We were doing potatoes, putting in the ground for the next winter. The Germans thought they were still there in next year. So in Turkey, when I got home, when I got back to the camp, I knew there was another selection. And then the selection has stopped. Suddenly the general decided that Auschwitz is going to be evacuated, the gassing has to be stopped, the crematoriums has been demolished. It was old crematoriums, big chimneys. This is not like what you saw in Auschwitz one here. Here was proper industrial-like murder, not like in Auschwitz one, it's individual. It was in Birkenau, the 4 crematoriums who are working in Birkenau, they could cope with between 10 and 15,000 bodies a day. So you can imagine how it looked like. So they were all demolished. In fact, one of the work which I done in Auschwitz, because I said I didn't do much work in Birkenau, I was working of pushing a cart to push the rubble from the demolished crematoriums and put it into earthfield somewhere. That was, I was working for a few days. Can I continue? Where is my governor? Can I continue? Because that will be, there will be no more stories. I will finish here, yeah?
You're finished?
No, I'm saying that will be my last chance, yeah? To speak.
I want to speak here. I want to finish the story here.
Yeah, all right, so I will finish my story. Because it's, I can talk about it for another 2 hours, because there's so many little incidents which I remember. For instance, my friend who was working in the kitchen, I never spoke about what we were eating, what he had for food. For food, we had in the morning we had coffee, a black liquid, not very